Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all of our witnesses for being here, in particular Dr. Mallory from my alma mater, the University of Washington, for joining us so early from our Washington. First, I wanted to talk about the significance of the digital economy and the challenges posed by China's restrictive digital policies. In our state of Washington, it's home to a vibrant technology industry, and digital trade is especially important to the state's more than 5,000 technology companies and $2.8 billion of digital exports. Nationally, U.S. exports of digital services are worth over $500 billion. And the Chinese Communist Party is currently advancing its own model for digital governance that favors censorship, surveillance, and control over civil rights, privacy, the free flow of data, and an open internet. For example, China's new so-called privacy law requires even more data localizations, steep fines, and ambiguous requirements for American companies. And this law has led to companies like US companies to pull services from the Chinese market, yet it exempts the Chinese government, so it'll continue to have access to its citizens' personal data. I'm concerned not only that enacting these policies internally in China, but that it's exporting this model to countries around the world. So if the US doesn't reassert global leadership in this area, our economy and our global influence will be put at a significant disadvantage. One action Congress can take is to pass our own federal consumer data privacy law that gives Americans control over their data and helps us bring policy to the international table. That's why I authored the Information Transparency and Personal Data Control Act, so that we have a strong national privacy standard. That would be an important place for us to start. I also just wanted to express concern that Dr. Mallory raised over Chinese government's tariffs on seafood, harmful fisheries subsidies, and distant water fishing fleet. Dr. Mallory is an expert on these issues. You know better than most about how the seafood industry is so critical to Washington State's economy, our tribal communities, and our culture. And sustainable fisheries support 60% of Washington's maritime economy. That's 146,000 jobs and $30 billion in economic activity, and China is a major export market. So Dr. Mallory, I wondered if you could speak to the importance of the seafood trade between Washington State and China, how it impacts fisheries management, indigenous populations, businesses, consumers, and workers. And thank you again for being with us.
Thanks for the great question. So the state of Washington, what kind of shows how important that relationship is between the state of Washington and China is the fact that the only other city that all the senior Chinese leaders have visited since Deng Xiaoping, besides Washington, D.C., has been Seattle because of the importance of trade. And certainly the last few years have negatively impacted that trade. And I think it's important, and this kind of gets back a little bit to Congressman Davis's question earlier too, like, what practical solutions can we really pursue? And I think first of all, we need to take a longer term view on our relationship with China. I think it's really important to differentiate between the average Chinese citizen, many of whom in China are very upset about the direction that their governing system has taken. There's a difference between those people and the current administration in China. So I think it's still important to think of ways in which we can engage with China that are, less threatening to the U.S. economy and security. To get back to the Representative Davis question too, I think getting ourselves right first is really important because we are not going to be able to change China. And so working on our own infrastructure, our own economy, becoming a vibrant, maybe more manufacturing of U.S. goods, so that we can be a country that other countries want to actually purchase our goods from. I don't think we want to be in the position of insisting that another country buy our goods. I think just the power of, our own production, I think should be attractive enough. And so, I think for Washington State, we are a great model for this. We have a great maritime economy, vibrant fisheries, a tech sector that is really innovative. We've done a lot on blue economy, the Sustainable Port Initiative. So all of that, I think if we're thinking about ourselves and how to get, the balance of, economy, trade, and fisheries protection right in the Pacific Northwest, even more broadly, I think that, can be a great model moving forward. And, also speaking of the CPTPP, I think that's an important component of this too, because the CPTPP has much stricter environmental regulations incorporated into it than China's RCEP does. And so, at least on environmental fronts, I think it's a really important agreement. And it provides, were the US to rejoin that, I think it provides alternatives to other countries besides just China. And it also gives us more opportunities besides China to export the goods that we produce on the American markets.
Thank you. My time's expired. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.